Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. You're with me, Miyuki Pasha. Before we head into stories in detail, let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
Former president to return on the 24th, says Udayanga Weerathunga. Swimming champion Julian Bowling at the CID, grilled for 8 hours. Chilau fishermen continue protests demanding fuel. 22 million Sri Lankans are victims of political persecution, says opposition leader. Heartily warns of extended power cuts. China stresses Yuan Wang 5 activities are consistent with international law. Bollywood actress Jacqueline Fernandez named as accused in laundering case.
Starting off with your top story tonight, former Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will return to the country on the 24th of August 2022. Ex-ambassador to Russia Udayanga Weerathunga, who visited the CID, said that the former president will return next week.
Ex-ambassador to Russia Udayanga Weerathunga arrived at the CID to provide a statement with regard to the procurement of MiG-27 fighter jets to the Sri Lankan Air Force. He was grilled by the detectives from the CID for approximately 5 hours. The controversial MiG deal relates to financial fraud during the procurement of 4 MiG-27 aircraft and the renovation of 3 MiG-27s and a MiG-23 aircraft for the Sri Lanka Air Force in 2006. Investigations are underway against Weerathunga for the alleged fraud of $6 million via a fake company portraying the MiG deal to be one between two governments.
The MiG deal took place as per requirements of the Sri Lanka Air Force. I did not carry out that deal, but all the charges are on me. There are no charges on the Air Force commander or the Defence Secretary. The pilots and those who introduced this deal are not charged. The officers from the central bank who approved the deal are not charged. There are 23 such officers. They work for the government of good governance and are working in the present government and will work in the next. However, the police continue to brand me as a criminal. Since Gotabaya Rajapaksa did not inquire into these, he too had to leave. There are many victims of political persecution. Gotabaya did not see that justice would be served. He forgot his roots. He forgot his own brother. He should come back and the people would embrace him. He is a person who can serve the country. He had to leave because of those around him. He is my cousin, but Gotabaya Rajapaksa does not have the character of Mahinda Rajapaksa. That is where we went wrong and the people did not understand it.
වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අද කියන්නේ අද වගකීමකින් කියන්නේ. එතුමා හිට වෙනස් කරොත් මං කිව්ව අන්න උදයන්ගේ කලින් කිව්වා කියලා වෙනස් කරොත් ඉතින් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ නේ.
The Nava Janata Peramuna says former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has a democratic right to return to the country. People are saying that Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the 7th executive president of Sri Lanka, must return. As the Nava Janata Peramuna, we say that he must return to the country. This is his fundamental right. We fully support that.
Swimming champion Julian Bowling and businessman Jonathan Martenstein arrived at the CID this morning to provide statements over the July 9th protests.
Sri Lankan swimming champion Julian Bowling and businessman Jonathan Martenstein arrived at the CID this morning to provide statements over the 9th of July protests. The Criminal Investigations Department had recorded statements from the duo for approximately 8 hours for the future investigation of the incident where President Ranil Wickremesinghe's house was torched on the 9th of July.
We have not done any wrong. I was asked what I thought about the Aragalaya, and I gave them an answer. The Aragalaya is special to me and everyone that wanted change. We are not affiliated with parties. I did nothing wrong, and they were surprised. I am happy to support any investigation. If I had done any wrong, I will accept the penalty. This is not a disappointment, but to my surprise, I was summoned. It is my duty to respond as per the law.
but ඒක මං ඒ කටින් අහන්න යන්නේ නැහැ නේ. මගේ ජොබ් එකේ නීති අනුව ඇවිල්ලා ඒ උත්තර දෙන්න.
2 days ago, I was informed by Julian that the CID had called us in to give a statement. The statement was regarding posts that we had put on social media, but that's what we were told. But when we came here, actually, apparently there is a complaint against us with regards to a protest that we did outside Mr. Vikramasinghe's house that ended up with his house being burnt. So we were questioned with regards to that, where we were brought in at 9 o'clock. And well, yeah, 5 o'clock, yes, we finished our statement. But yes, unfortunately, the situation is, if you protest, be ready for something like this. That's what they're saying. We might have fuel, we might have gas, we might have everything else, but has the system changed? That was what the Aragale was about.
Former Sri Lankan Test cricket captain Roshan Mahanama posted on Facebook his disappointment over Julian Bowling being questioned by the CID. He said, and I quote, "Right for speech and expression of your opinion in a peaceful way is our basic human right. In a society where people turn a blind eye for money, power and personal interest, my friend Julian Bowling has always been outspoken and stood for what's right without any political bias, like me. It is sad to see a great human being like Julian, who has brought much glory to the country and with an unblemished track record in society, being questioned while many who needs to be questioned remain untouched at large." End quote.
The Negombo branch of the Gugagama protest was dismantled earlier this morning. A group had stormed into the Gugagama premises that was set up at the Thelwatha junction in Negombo and dismantled the premises. Activists claim that their placards and equipments were stolen by the group.
The struggle was not to send Gotabaya Rajapaksa home. One must not assume that the Aragalaya must stop after Ranil was elected president. We are in this struggle to make the government fall to its knees and win the demands of the people. Ranil becoming president does not change the objective of the protest. We carried out this struggle continuously. Gotabaya left, but the system didn't change. We tell those who demolished our tents and stole our equipment not to engage in such low-level acts.
Protests by Sri Lankan fishermen demanding a solution to the fuel crisis continued for the second day, and many fishermen have taken to the streets, citing that they were unable to engage in their trade for almost 3 months.
Sri Lankan fishermen from the coastal town of Chilau are protesting for the second day, demanding a permanent solution to the fuel crisis. Fishermen from many areas proceeded to the Chilau town to support the protest. Fishermen from areas including Kalpitiya, Talavilla, Mampuriya, Vennappua, Thoduava marched in protest demanding permanent solutions to their problems. The authorities have pushed the fisherfolk to the bottom of the barrel. Why have the authorities forgotten the fishermen? If they do not give us solutions, even after we took to the streets, where should we go to? A fisheries minister was sworn in to work for the fishermen, but it's of no use.
The children are suffering and we are unable to feed them. We need the fuel. We are daily wages. We are suffering with our children. We are finding it impossible to send our children to school. We are unable to feed our families. If children go to school with an empty stomach, they faint and fall ill. We do not want money from the government. All we want is fuel. We have been at home for 3 months.
Fishermen of the Koskota Kaikawala area also held demonstrations today.
We used to buy a kerosene bottle for just 150 rupees, but none of us were able to work since April. We can't even find fuel in the black market since March. We are left with no option but to sell our boats to earn a living. We have sold around 7 to 8 boats by now.
This was a reaction from the Minister of Fisheries. We expect to receive kerosene oil by the end of the week. The government's efforts in importing crude oil have been successful. We can distribute that consignment this week. We plan to import another consignment in the near future. We had discussions to import kerosene oil from the ministry as well. We believe that we'll get that consignment within the next few weeks.
Now, it is not only the fishermen whose lives have been severely affected due to the ongoing fuel crisis. It has affected the farmers as well.
Sri Lankan farmers are facing serious issues in sourcing fuel to power up the machinery in order to reap the harvest for this year's Yala harvesting season. The Polonnaruwa District Agricultural Committee gathered today to discuss this pressing matter. Farmers from the Parakrama Samudra, Giritale, Minneria and Kaudulla areas were present at the meeting.
They must provide fuel to agrarian unions at least 10 days prior to harvesting. There is no point in receiving fuel after the rain has poured down on our fields. We have no option but to protest on the streets over and over again. The area surrounding Parakrama Samudra itself needs 63 bowsers and they need to bring that here within 2 weeks. How can they supply 63 bowsers within 2 to 3 weeks? Give us an opportunity to meet the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Energy to decide whether or not we will be given fuel. There are only two ways forward. The first is to have a token system for all the farmers. Second, get a list approved by the district officer and bring each agrarian union and distribute the fuel. If that is to be done, first send the district secretary to the depot. If you don't like it, then we can't help you. It is easier to go for the second option than handing out tokens to everyone.
Purchasing paddy for the Yala season commenced today. The Paddy Marketing Board announced that a kilo of nadu will be purchased at 120 rupees and a kilo of samba will be purchased at 125 rupees. A kilo of kiri samba will be purchased at 130 rupees by the Paddy Marketing Board. However, farmers claim that this amount is insufficient to cover their costs.
It costs close to 240,000 rupees to cultivate 1 acre of paddy. Look at the harvest this season. It's averaging 1,500 kilos of paddy an acre. Therefore, we are completely unsatisfied with the price they have offered for paddy this season. It costs us around 145 rupees to produce 1 kilo of paddy. Therefore, we request at least 150 rupees for a kilo of paddy. A sack of fertilizer has skyrocketed to 40,000 rupees. Fuel that used to cost us 2,000 is now costing us 8,000. Back then, it used to cost us around 8 to 10,000 rupees to harvest an acre. Now it costs us 24,000 rupees. How can we give paddy at this price when the cost of production is increased to threefold? We need a fair price for our paddy according to the cost we incur. The cost is 150 rupees a kilo.
Farmers in Alahara also convened a press conference demanding a fair price for their paddy.
I demand the minister to gain some experience as soon as he can. You come and farm an acre, work and see. I will come to work at your house as a maid. How can we live after selling our paddy for 122, 125 and 130 rupees a kilo?
Don't make decisions like this while sitting in an air-conditioned room. If not, we will give up farming. If this continues, people won't have rice to eat.
In some tragic news here at home, the human-elephant conflict that has gone unresolved claimed another life last night. The victim was a 28-year-old father of one. 28-year-old Thilina Prasad Navaratna, just like any other Sri Lankan, is struggling to make ends meet and to provide for his family. A remote village in Polonnaruwa that is constantly threatened by encroaching wild elephants was his home. And on Tuesday night, Thilina met with an untimely tragedy trying to save his home and crops. Thilina died after he was attacked by a wild elephant last night. He had attempted to chase away the pachyderm that reached close to home when the electricity was out. 28-year-old Thilina Prasad was employed as a labourer at a local store in Bakamuna. The people in this remote village are constantly facing a battle between life and death due to the threat of wild elephants.
මිනිසුන්ට පුදුමාකාර හානියක් තියෙන හවස 5-6 වෙනකොට ගමට වදිනවා. ඊට පස්සේ උදේ පාන්දර ආයි 6ට 4 තමයි යන්නේ ඉස්කෝලේ යන ළමයි ලොකු අවදානමක. උදේට ඉස්පිරිතාලයට ලෙඩ්ඩු බලන්න යන මිනිස්සු අමාරුයි.
As responsible authorities fail to look into the issues faced by these villagers, a 4-year-old little boy is now left without a father.
News First with the people.
නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Eslon Inside. Eslon ජීවයයි ජලයයි ජීවිතේ.
Earn a highest interest rate of 23% for 8 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru.
Moving on, Indian media reported that Sri Lanka gave in to intense pressure from China and last week reversed a decision to defer the visit to Hambantota by the Yuan Wang 5, which docked in the southern port on Tuesday morning. However, China says that marine scientific research activities of the Yuan Wang 5 ship are consistent with international law and international common practice.
The Chinese tracking vessel Yuan Wang 5 docked at the Chinese-built Hambantota port in Sri Lanka's deep south on Tuesday and remains in port. According to clearance issued by the Sri Lanka Foreign Ministry, the vessel will remain in Hambantota for a period of 7 days for replenishment purposes. According to Colombo-based official sources, both India and the US had conveyed their apprehensions to the Sri Lankan government at the highest level, citing the vessel's military capabilities while in the Indian Ocean region. Both India and the US have conveyed to the Sri Lankan side their concerns about the call by the vessel used by the People's Liberation Army to track satellites and ballistic missiles. Indian Navy officials said on condition of anonymity that the Indian Navy keeps a close watch on extra-regional activity in the Indian Ocean, especially the movement and presence of Chinese vessels such as the Yuan Wang 5. The Indian External Affairs Minister said the Indian Ocean will not become another flashpoint between India and China. The External Affairs Minister said that India needs to take care of its national interests but can't claim exclusivity in the region. He said that India's neighbours are culturally comfortable and economically bound. The External Affairs Minister said that India is the only neighbour to have helped Sri Lanka in the economic crisis to step forward to deal with the IMF. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin told reporters on Tuesday that the marine scientific research activities of the Yuan Wang 5 ship are consistent with international law and international customary practice. He said that they do not affect the security and economic interests of any country and should not be obstructed by any third party. He added that China has been doing its utmost to support and help Sri Lanka pull through the difficulties and will continue to do so.
Sri Lanka has given provisional approval for 2 wind energy projects by the India-based conglomerate Adani Group.
Sri Lanka has granted provisional approval to Adani Green Energy for an investment of over $500 million in 2 wind projects in Sri Lanka's north. The 2 projects will come up in Mannar and Punarin. Adani Green Energy was issued provisional approvals for 2 wind projects of 286 megawatts in Mannar and 234 megawatts in Punarin. Sri Lanka's Central Environment Authority told reporters in Colombo that if Adani Green Energy meets the CEA conditions within 14 days, permission can be granted to kickstart the project.
පරිසර අධිකාරිය මැදිහත් වෙන්නේ සමාගමත් එක්ක නෙමෙයි. පරිසර අධිකාරිය ආයෝජකයත් එක්ක නෙමෙයි ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන්.
The Central Environmental Authority does not deal with the investor. There are two institutions that deal directly with the investor. One is the Sustainable Energy Authority that issues the license, and the other is the Department of Coast Conservation for Punarin. As a government agency, the CEA will work with these two bodies. With regard to manner, we will prepare a draft report that will be submitted to the Sustainable Energy Authority and the Department of Coast Conservation for Punarin. Therefore, the CEA does not need to deal with the investor but works closely with the two respective institutions.
ඒ ආයතන දෙකට අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු සහ කටයුතු අපි කරගෙන යනවා. අපි වේලාසනින් කරගෙන ගියා. ඒ අභ්‍යන්තර වෙච්ච සාකච්ඡාවක ප්‍රතිඵලයක්.
We were working on this and the awarding took place based on internal discussion. You can pose the question to the minister with regard to transparency, accountability and other related matters.
භාවයේ සිද්ධ වුණාද නැද්ද කියන එක සම්බන්ධයෙන් දැනගන්න ඕනේ එතුමාගේ.
Now taking a look at a headline-making story tonight, Sri Lankan opposition leader Sajit Premadasa claims that 22 million people have become victims of political persecution.
යහපාලන රජයේ හිටපු අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමා
The Prime Minister under the government of good governance is the President today. The Pohottua is adding pressure on him to approve the cabinet paper to compensate those who are victims of political persecution. This is a massive amount. Following the fertilizer ban, cultivations were destroyed. Lives were lost when gas cylinders exploded and some people suffered injuries as well. Many others were economically battered. Where is the compensation for all these people? Over the past 2 to 3 years, the government persecuted all 22 million people. The time has come to compensate them all. Are we being invited to a cabinet so they can get approval for short-sighted proposals?
අපිටත් කැබිනට් එකට එන්නේ කියන්නේ මේ වගේ මෝඩ තකතිරු යෝජනා ඉස්තිර කරන්නද?
Pediatricians are warning that there is a possibility of malnutrition increasing among children in Sri Lanka in the future.
When
we take into account the socio-economic situation in the country, there will be a rise in malnutrition in the future, and we need to take measures to prevent it from happening.
There are malnourished children in the country. We believe that with inflation, the situation can get worse. Families have started skipping meals, and intake of nutrients is also dropped. As adults, we need to solve this situation. If not, the future of our children will be at risk.
මේ වලට විසඳුම් හොයාගන්න ඕන වැඩිහිටියන් හැටියට විසඳුම් හොයාගන්න ඕන නැත්නම් අපේ දරු පරම්පරාව ඊටාම බැරෑරුම් භයානක තත්වයකට පත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Moving on, the National Animal Producers Unity, a collective of those in the poultry industry, convened a media briefing to elaborate on the issues they face.
A kilogram of animal feed was between 15 rupees to 20 rupees. However, the price has increased to 40. A litre of milk is around 137 rupees and 50 cents. So when you do the math for fuel and animal feed, the cost is high. The main issue that we face is purchasing medicine required for animals. There is no program for that. We cannot be certain about the government's plan to feed the people. Only 2 litres of fuel is given per grass cutter. Milk and eggs carry high amounts of nutrients. We are living in a country with a government that has failed to provide nutrition to the people.
Parliamentarian Partli Champika Ranawaka made a revelation concerning the supply of electricity today.
It is said the Norochole power plant encountered a breakdown. However, the power plant was shut down for maintenance. If we do not import 2.5 million tons of coal by end of September, the power outages will have to be extended to at least 10 hours. In addition, a cabinet paper has been submitted to import coal until 2025. The question is, they don't have US dollars to import fuel for the next few months, but are trying to import coal in bulk to last until 2025. We question the basis of this move. If a transparent procurement process is not followed, we will have to face issues.
ඉතින් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් විවෘත ආකාරයේ ප්‍රසම්පාදන ක්‍රියාවලියක් අනුගමනය නොකළොත් අපිට ප්‍රශ්න වලට මුහුණ දෙන්න වෙනවා.
In more news here at home, railway trade unions warn Sri Lanka's railway service is facing a precarious situation owing to the lack of lubricants and other equipment required for maintenance.
Train travel gained considerable popularity among commuters in recent months owing to the exponential hike in bus fares largely attributed to the fuel crisis. Despite this, railway trade unions have alerted that the service is at the risk of collapse. According to trade unions, nearly 20 engines have been sidelined from service owing to a lack of lubricants and other equipment, with reports suggesting this issue has led to the cancellation of more than 50 scheduled journeys per day. According to the joint convener of the Alliance of Railway Trade Unions, SP Vithanage, a substantial number of locomotive engines have been temporarily removed from service due to the lack of imported lubricants and batteries. Commenting on the severity of the shortage, joint convener of the Alliance of Railway Trade Unions, SP Vithanage, said new train tracks were last imported in 2019, while there is a severe shortage of several types of metals, screws, clips and other spare parts. Gamini Senemiratna, Deputy General Manager of the Department of Railways, says Sri Lanka Railways has managed to purchase a satisfactory amount of engine oil. He also affirmed that passengers should not bear reservations over the matter since the department is committed to provide a high-quality service. Speaking on the claims made by trade unions, the Deputy General Manager said a number of engines have been removed from service owing to minor repairs. Speaking further, he conceded that the department is facing a shortage of employees with expertise on repairing railway tracks. He also noted that speed limits have been imposed on certain routes so as to avoid unfortunate events in the future.
Dr. Harsha De Silva made the following remarks regarding the economic situation in the country at a media briefing organized by the Samagi Janabalawegaya today.
The
main problem we are facing right now is that Sri Lankan government has lost its credibility both locally and internationally. We have sunk to the very bottom of the Fitch ratings. In other words, we have defaulted on our debt. We will not be able to climb back up in the ratings unless we restructure our debt. We don't have to do that just because anyone is asking us to do it. We have to brace ourselves to take decisions we haven't had to take during any time in our country's history. What other options do we have? This is not something we have to do just because our President Ranil Wickremesinghe asks us to. He is yet to present a way forward. Some ask us why we aren't working with the government. If we are to work with the government, we demand an all-party government. If you want us to join, then accept our way forward and establish a timeline. Establish a way forward and give us a timeline. Give us a date for the next election. If that is the case, I believe all parties will support an all-party government. But this is not going to work out if Ranil Wickremesinghe and co are going to drag this on until 2025.
Ranil Wickremesinghe ජනාධිපතිවරයා එහෙමනම් මේ වැඩේ සාර්ථක වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
According to the Department of Immigration and Immigration, Scottish Instagrammer Kaylee Fraser, who is to be deported, cannot be located and an investigation is underway to trace her.
The Court of Appeal on Tuesday rejected an application made by Kaylee Fraser, who was seeking to terminate the decision taken by the Immigration and Immigration Department to deport her from Sri Lanka. The Justice of the Court of Appeal noted that the Controller General of Immigration and Immigration has the right to terminate or cancel the visa without giving a reason, and it has been confirmed by rulings delivered by the Supreme Court as well. On August 10th, the Department of Immigration and Immigration decided to terminate the visa issued to Scottish tourist Kaylee Fraser, who posted content with regard to the Argale protest on social media. The department had informed her to leave Sri Lanka before the 15th of August.
Loves Gas has decided to reduce the price of a domestic gas cylinder by 1,050 rupees with effect from tonight. Accordingly, the new price of a 12.5 kilogram cylinder will be 5,850 rupees. Moving on, the UK launched a new scheme for cutting tariffs on imports from developing countries. Bizfirst has the details.
British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Sarah Hulton, says Sri Lanka will benefit from the UK's new Developing Countries Trading Scheme. She tweeted that the Developing Countries Trading Scheme is one of the most generous sets of trading preferences of any country in the world and will benefit Sri Lanka by boosting the economy and supporting jobs. The government of the United Kingdom is set to introduce Developing Countries Trading Scheme, or the DCTS, in early 2023, replacing the UK's current Generalised Scheme of Preferences, commonly known as GSP. According to High Commissioner Sarah Hulton, under the DCTS, Sri Lanka will continue to benefit from duty-free exports to the UK on more than 80% of products. The Developing Countries Trading Scheme will remove tariffs on over 150 additional products. High Commissioner Hulton said the Developing Countries Trading Scheme will also simplify some seasonal tariffs, meaning additional and simpler access for Sri Lanka's exports to the UK. Her tweet further read that the UK looks forward to future trading opportunities with Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka's military is seeking deeper ties with Pacific Air Forces for maritime security and disaster relief while not roiling China.
Sri Lankan Defence Attaché Air Vice Marshal Sampath Wickramaratne at the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Washington DC said that the Sri Lanka Air Force has sought to work more closely with the Pacific Air Forces or PACAF and is willing to participate in some exercises of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, commonly known as the Quad Grouping, which includes Australia, the United States, Japan and India. We are very concerned about the status quo of the region, he said, adding that Sri Lanka is very careful it does not agitate any of the power players in the region, stressing on the country's non-aligned status. However, Sri Lanka is worried about shifting security trends in the Indo-Pacific. Wickramaratne acknowledged that the US's presence in the Indian Ocean traces to the 19th century, and he described China as a close, distant friend, reflecting its close ties to Sri Lanka while geographically separate. Now, Sri Lanka aims to develop its transport and ISR capabilities to better respond to humanitarian and disaster relief and to enhance maritime surveillance, an area where PACAF has shown interest in strengthening collaboration. One way the attaché said Sri Lanka can more closely support PACAF's goals is by allowing the placement of ISR assets such as the US Department of Transportation application Sea-Vision or Hawkeye 360, a commercial company that gathers radio frequency data from satellite constellations. Sri Lanka already partners with India, Australia and Japan regionally in this area.
Vivsavia, the rural empowerment program seeking to support the worst affected communities in Sri Lanka, is currently ongoing. Today marked the 12th day of the program's third phase. This meritorious effort is supported by the LOLC group.
Today's proceedings commenced from the Katuwana Divisional Secretariat office in the Hambantota district. Hampers containing essential items were doled out to several beneficiaries at 3 locations in the Hambantota district today. The objective of the Vivsavia program is to identify families whose woes have been compounded by the current economic situation and support them through the distribution of essential items.
Sri Lankan Indian actress Jacqueline Fernandez has been named and accused in the money laundering case against conman Sukesh Chandrasekhar, who faces charges of extortion amounting to a massive 2 billion Indian rupees.
Jacqueline Fernandez has been named and accused in the supplementary charge sheet filed in a Delhi court by the Enforcement Directorate, which is probing the money trail in the extortion case. Earlier, Delhi police had arrested Chandrasekhar for allegedly extorting around 2.1 billion Indian rupees from Aditi Singh and Shivendra Singh, members of the former promoters of pharmaceutical giant Ranbaxy. Taking cognizance of the Delhi police case, the Enforcement Directorate, or ED, started its money laundering probe. The ED's first charge sheet mentioned how Chandrasekhar used the allegedly swindled money. In its supplementary charge sheet, it has alleged that Chandrasekhar gave Fernandez gifts worth over 50 million Indian rupees from the sum he swindled. It has named the actress as an accused, alleging that she was aware that the gifts were brought from the proceeds of the crime. Earlier, the ED had attached assets belonging to the actor and had also questioned her. The agency in April provisionally attached 70 million Indian rupees in assets of the actress in the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. From the money amassed by extorting high-profile individuals, Chandrasekhar gifted the Sri Lankan actress items to the tune of 60 million Indian rupees. The lavish gifts to the actress include a horse worth 5.2 million Indian rupees, 3 Persian cats worth 900,000 Indian rupees, designer clothes and gym wear, designer bags, and a Mini Cooper which reportedly the actress returned. Chandrasekhar also gave a loan of $173,000 to Fernandez's sister. He also gifted a BMW car, a Rolex watch and a loan of 1.5 million Indian rupees to her brother. Investigations also revealed that Fernandez was in regular contact with Chandrasekhar till his arrest on August 7, 2022. The gifts to the actress became a talking point in 2021 after Chandrasekhar listed the gifts to Fernandez in a statement.
Explosions and fires have ripped through at least 17 locations in southern Thailand in what appeared to be multiple coordinated attacks and injured several people.
At least 17 attacks occurred in the southern provinces of Patani, Narathiwat and Yala, most at small shops and gas stations. At least 3 civilians were reported injured. No one has claimed responsibility for the attacks so far. Police Captain Sarayut Kotsawong said he received a report shortly before midnight that a suspect had entered a shop at a gas station in Yala's Yaha district, placed a black bag inside and warned employees to leave if they do not want to die. The workers left before the bag exploded 10 minutes later. Provinces in southern Thailand along the border with Malaysia have seen a decades-long low-level rebellion in which the Thai government has battled groups seeking independence for the provinces of Patani, Yala, Narathiwat and parts of Songkhla.
The Sri Lankan team that will compete in the Legends Cricket Tournament started their practice sessions.
The 2022 Legends Cricket Tournament is set to be ablaze by legends of the game who have retired in the recent past. It will be a 20-over tournament and 8 teams are set to take part. Sri Lanka, India, Australia, the West Indies, South Africa, Bangladesh, England and New Zealand are set to take part in the tournament. The Sri Lanka Legends team attended practices at the BRC grounds in Colombo. Sanat Jayasuriya, Upul Taranga, Chamara Kapugedara, Chaminda Vas, Asela Gunaratna, Dilruwan Pereira, Chaturanga de Silva and a few others attended the practice session.
Sri Lanka Customs seized gold biscuits from the possession of a passenger at the Bandaranaike International Airport this morning. The illegally imported gold was worth 205 million rupees and weighed approximately 9.5 kilograms. The passenger who carried the gold biscuits and a woman who accepted the cargo were both arrested. And with that, it's a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. Take care and good night.